Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and you're listening to The Business of Content, a podcast about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. In this week's episode, we discuss why Business Insider decided to launch a hard paywall. It seems like not a week goes by without another online publisher announcing a subscription paywall, but that didn't make me any less surprised when Business Insider debuted its own paid subscription product. Founded in 2007 by Henry Blodget, Business Insider took boring, staid business reporting and curated it with a bloggy, conversational voice. Funded by digital advertising, BI tested the theory that a digital media company could scale its way to profitability with free content. But in 2015, Business Insider was acquired by Axel Springer, a German media company that fiercely protects its intellectual property and is a firm believer that consumers should pay for content. In 2017, Business Insider launched Prime, a subscription product which places some of the site's daily reporting behind a paywall. Though it still publishes plenty of free content, you'll have to cough up around $10 a month if you want to access its most deeply reported articles. To get insights into Business Insider's paywall strategy, I interviewed Claudius Senst, its head of consumer subscriptions. I asked him how editors decide whether to place an article behind the paywall, what converts readers into paying subscribers, and why Business Insider didn't follow in the footsteps of the Washington Post and New York Times by launching a metered paywall. One quick note on the recording. Because of some problems with my recording software, we were forced to record this episode using our iPhones. This resulted in a very slight echo on my end of the recording. It shouldn't hinder your ability to understand any of the dialogue. Okay, let's jump into the interview with Claudius. Hey Claudius, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Simon. It's a pleasure.
So you're the head of consumer subscriptions at Business Insider. What does that mean?
That's correct. Obviously, I assume that most of our listeners know Business Insider and Insider, our big brands under the Insider umbrella. And a couple of years ago, shortly after the acquisition of Business Insider by Axel Springer, the conversation about broadening the revenue streams at Business Insider somewhat accelerated. And Business Insider at that point had a very healthy and growing advertising revenue, very healthy and growing syndication revenue, commerce, etc., etc. But we felt that it was about time to think about consumer revenue as well. We already launched a couple of years ago a B2B product, Business Insider Intelligence, a research-driven subscription product. But we felt that given the evolving newsroom and the evolution of the brand, there was about time to think about consumer revenue. And that took some time. And then in late 2017, I got the opportunity to join the Business Insider team from the corporate parent. I was with Axel Springer before that, because we reached a point where we felt we did lots of testing, and now it's BI prime time, so to say, and we can launch a consumer subscription product called Business Insider Prime. And I'm in charge of this consumer subscription product, and that's why the title head of consumer subscriptions.
And so Business Insider, it's a mostly free product. I know you mentioned that you had Business Insider Intelligence, and we'll get into that in a second. So you were working in Germany for Axel Springer. Axel Springer purchases Business Insider, and then now you're based in New York now and working on the BI Prime.
That is correct. Yeah, I joined Axel Springer in April of 2013. So time flies. And had various roles within Axel Springer in Germany. And then in 2016, I had the opportunity of working closer with our growing US portfolio. So that was shortly after the acquisition of Business Insider. And in addition to Business Insider, Axel Springer also acquired eMarketer around that time and was invested in various other digital media startups. So I started to work more and more with the portfolio companies here in the US and spent more and more time with Business Insider, and then over time transitioned into a full-time role with Business Insider. And it somewhat fitted quite well because years ago I was also part of the launch team of another Axel Springer consumer subscription product, Build Plus, which is Axel Springer's largest German media brand. And there, the launch of like Build Plus as a front runner in the German subscription offerings was around summer of 13. So that was also around the time when I joined Axel Springer. So like it felt like another exciting opportunity, obviously in a different role, in a different country, in a different market with a different brand. But that is how it came together.
And so Business Insider, it gets acquired by Axel Springer and it launches Prime in 2017?
That is correct. I mean, like whether we call it launch, but like I think that it was a longer process. To be very honest, we spent quite some time testing what is the right fit for the brand Business Insider when it comes to consumer subscriptions, and I think this like theme of testing and iteration and constant improvements of like getting better every day is definitely what we continue to do. But in late 2017, we started rolling it out to a broader audience. We felt confident that like a freemium product, which is Business Insider Prime, is the right approach given the audience profile on Business Insider. And started in like selected verticals, and then over time, in the beginning of 18, so roughly a year ago, added more and more parts of the newsroom contributing to Business Insider Prime from a journalistic point of view.
And how much does it cost?
Well, Business Insider Prime costs $12.95 a month these days now, or $19 for the year. If you're super committed, you are also more than welcome to join for 2 years up front. At $179.
And so that's that other business-centered publications like the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, even DigiDay, they cost a pretty hefty $35 a month. Why did you settle on that price, which was much lower?
Well, I think I don't see it as so much lower. One needs to be careful, I think, when it comes to like prices, like or shown prices and actual paid prices by the majority of users. But I don't want to go too much into that one. I think it felt like it was a good introductory price set, to put it like that, right? We looked at Business Insider Prime as a product which is so much evolving over time that we felt confident with like starting with this price point and seeing that this is like really working. But obviously over time, like the quality and the complexity of the product in a good way, so to say, in a way that like you have the ability to consume even more stories with a subscription at this point than like a year ago, made us feel like confident of like launching with these prices as like an introductory price point, and we will see where the prices evolve and like how we will continue working on the pricing side.
And this is like a pretty hard paywall, right? Like this isn't your metered paywall that you might find at a New York Times or Washington Post. Like if you hit a story that's designated as a prime story, you can't get past that. You can't use incognito mode. You have to be a subscriber to get to that story.
Right. I mean, like, so there's like the general theme, and I think like our like vision is that like with Business Insider Prime, we basically take you inside companies, industries, markets that matter to our reader, that our readers care about. And we basically provide them with information which they need to know at that very moment. So therefore we feel that like asking someone to pay for an information which he probably needs to know at that very moment when he's interacting with an article is, from our point of view, the purest and fairest approach. There is, though, and that's also what I meant with like an evolution of our like also like technical and product capabilities, that we look at like where is the user coming from, what is the frequency of visits by that particular user, etc., helping us provide a different experience based on like different referral channels, for example. And that can be that like we do not give away a story for free, because I think that is one of the great pitfalls of like just like creating this idea of that like a story should be free in certain environments. We ask you to like create an account, and then you might have the ability to join with a guest pass for a certain amount of time. And if you then convert to like a full paying subscriber, after that, we are obviously more than happy, and we see that a lot.
Yeah, I seem to remember, I don't know if this is still true, but like if I was on my phone and I clicked on a link from Twitter, then I wouldn't hit the Business Insider, the Prime paywall. But if I was on my desktop and I had saved it to like Instapaper and went to it later, then all of a sudden I hit the paywall. Is that what you're kind of talking about? How it's somewhat based on context?
Yes. Yes, so like exactly. I mean, like it's like we apply various rules and obviously like also react to audience like preferences, reactions, and look at it like in a way to like optimize the overall user experience, but also like the overall like business perspective.
And so if you told me a decade ago that one day Business Insider would not only have a paywall, but it would be a hard paywall, like I don't think I would have believed that person if they were to tell me this. Like what made Business Insider innovative, what I thought, where Henry Blodget was really brilliant, who's the founder of Business Insider, is that it took this boring business, this boring staid business journalism, and it reinterpreted it through this kind of bloggy voice that treated it almost like sports journalism, and that's what made Business Insider fun to read. Do you think by launching a paywall, you're kind of steering away from that more kind of fun, bloggy voice?
I would disagree to the fullest. I'd say. I mean, first of all, like I completely agree with the genius of Henry Blodget, but I think this fits in perfectly well because and you mentioned that before. If you come to Business Insider and if you go to our homepage, lots of stories can be read there free of charge, and like you can ask the question like, is it free of charge? I mean, like obviously you're like getting served ads, and there's like a value in like the advertising side of things, and this is super important to us and will be super important to us going forward as well. But I don't think that like the approach which we took, we basically moved a single dime away from like this vision of like providing like information and inspire our readers on like a broad range of topics at a high frequency, at a high speed. It's just for like a very selected number of stories which provide a very specific use case, like a need for like a certain information, which you might need from a professional point of view, which you might need from a personal development point of view. All these things where we provide a different value proposition, I think it's a very fair argument to ask someone to pay for it. Whereas you describe it as a hard paywall, I would describe it as a fair paywall, because where I struggle the most with take for example like the metered approach is like, yes, you might maybe count down articles, but then again, if I read 3 amazing in-depth journalistic pieces and hit a 4th story, which is, and not even talking about Business Insider here, but like which is just like a very short snippet of an article, and that hits me with a paywall, I always feel betrayed as a user. I feel like, why is it asking me to pay now? I mean, like, this is like a moment where I probably don't want to convert, where I don't think it's like the right moment in time to be asked to pay for something. Though on the other hand, I think with our approach, we specifically look for moments where we're convinced that we provide value to our readers, and then ask them for like a fair exchange. And I think that's how we look at it, and that's like why we think this is a very, very promising approach.
Well, you say that like a lot of their stories are free, and only a percentage, some percentage of them are behind the Prime paywall. But I feel like the vast majority of stories I click on are behind the Prime paywall. Is that just because I just happen to be more interested in the verticals that are behind the Prime paywall? Is that confirmation bias? Like, how do you decide what goes in front of and behind the paywall?
Great question. And like to coming back to like the sample size of one or your personal case. First of all, I think it's amazing that you're seeing the Business Insider Prime offer so frequently, and I assume you're like a very loyal subscriber at this point now. But more importantly, and I mentioned it before, I think the main decision whether a story is free or whether it's subscriber only is done by editorial. And obviously editorial, like the editorial leadership team or the editors in the various verticals, they know best whether a story is as I said before, need to know information versus a broader nice to know, not of lesser quality, but like a story which you might be able to pick up somewhere else as well, where we feel that like we might have a different tone, but where we don't have an exclusive angle or whatever. So that is a decision which the editorial team performs for each and every story, and obviously over time they get a very good understanding of like which story is rather a subscriber story versus which story is a broader general interest story. But again, this is something, so like coming back to your point of view, if you are super interested in the amazing coverage of one of our advertising reporters, or if you're super interested in the fabulous coverage in our finance or investing space, and you're very, like, you're not looking for the general, like, fly-by short bits of information pieces here, then you might be interacting on a higher frequency with our Business Insider Prime offering than someone who's just like clicking on a fun slideshow about like the strategic questions of how to structure your day in a certain job or whatever.
So you're making it on a story by story basis. So it's not like not every story in a certain vertical or by a certain reporter. It's really based on this criteria of, is this just kind of some fun analysis, or is this are we breaking news of some sort or having some exclusive information? Like, you're really making that on a case by case basis.
Exactly. I mean, the editorial team is doing a fabulous job on that, and I think that is something where, in particular, Matt Turner, who was spearheading the efforts from early on, and his broader leadership team around him is really working very closely with individual authors on like deciding on like what is like a story which feels compelling enough to ask someone to pay for it, which I think is also a great question, because obviously Business Insider is reaching an amazing amount of people every month with all of our stories, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that we provide them with like a fair offer, and so we look very distinct on like which stories provide a professional need to know information, whereas like would you be disappointed if we ask you to pay for it? So I think that is like the like this need to know decision making process is definitely like what the editorial team is doing on a story basis here.
So you guys actually experimented with paywalls of sorts before launching Prime, and you still have this, but with Business Insider Intelligence. I really did like that idea, because you still had this bloggy Business Insider that everyone loved, but there was no paywall. It was all ad supported, but there were also these deeply researched reports that were a lot more expensive, that businesses could pay a premium for. Like, if you wanted to go, like, you would do a report on some deep dive on, mobile marketing, or, augmented reality, where someone working in that space would want to, pay $100 or something, or subscribe for $100 a month, to be able to access those reports. Why not just keep that model instead of having, so keep the kind of bloggy ad-supported side completely, and then just have this like much more expensive tier like Business Insider Intelligence. And do you still have Business Insider Intelligence? Like, that's still a product?
Oh, absolutely. And like Business Insider Intelligence is doing extremely well. And as you rightly said, I think like there are different products for different needs. And I personally, I really struggle with this, like, you have to do either or. And in the same way, I would say like all the chatter about like a pivot to subscriptions or a pivot to XYZ is like completely misleading, and that's exactly what we're not doing. I think what Henry Blodget from very early on always like focused on was creating and growing a sustainable business. And if you want to grow and build a sustainable business, you need to be very cost efficient and looking on like like what you spend your money on, but B, also think about like which revenue streams are promising to me. And I don't think we have to talk about media, but like in any business, if you rely on like a small number of revenue sources or only on like one revenue source, I think it is like a higher risk business that if like a certain revenue source changes, or like a market dynamic changes, then your business is obviously more affected by it. So what we're doing here is like we create a stable, sustainable, and like fast growing business with various and different revenue streams. And that's why we felt like we don't have to give up the, as you described it, like fun bloggy experience, but still have the ability to create a product which is loved and received by tens of thousands of customers but now every month. And we feel confident that like we do this not at the price of like the free product, but in addition to that. And we see that like Business Insider Prime is providing us with the opportunity to grow our newsroom and to deepen our reporting, and I think that's what's fabulous about it, and that's what's making so much fun to work on this product and grow this product every day.
What role do you think Axel Springer has played in pushing for a paywall? Because I know it's Axel Springer has been a lot more aggressive in protecting its IP. It's sued ad blockers, and it's one of the companies that supported the copyright reform in Europe that would force Google to pay for content displayed in Google News. One thing I've heard is that European publishers, like, they were a lot more skeptical of the free model, so a lot of Europeans are a little bit more primed to pay for news than Americans are. Do you think that without Axel Springer is the main thrust behind this paywall?
I would need to lie if I say I can give you a black and white answer on this. As I said before, I think Henry always drove Business Insider in a fabulous way. And obviously, as you said, Axel Springer and Matthias Döpfner as Axel Springer CEO in particular, questioned very early on why there is this perception that just because it's the internet, great journalism must be free or needs to be free. I think it's a really fair question to ask and hard to understand why. And it goes down to the term paywall, which you touched on several times during the interview. Now, I think why do we as publishers call a fair question to ask for a value exchange for a service we provide? Why do we call it a wall? I mean, not just here in the US, there's lots of chatter about the wall, but I think there are not that many areas where a framing of a fair question to ask is done in such a negative way as within the publishing industry when it comes to asking for a fair value exchange. So I think we can go on and this is not just a philosophical question, but I think a very important question. But that has not so much to do with Axel Springer asking anyone here at Business Insider to launch a subscription product. I think that was the understanding that the time was ripe, and that we felt that doing a test was the right thing to do, and that we are aligned on this with Axel Springer is a positive side effect, I'd say.
So for much of its existence, Business Insider has been an advertising-supported business. And so I was wondering, what as someone who works on the subscription side, what your conversations are with the people on the ad side. Not only do you have a hard subscription paywall, I know you don't like that word, but Business Insider also has a strict no ad blocking stance. So you'll actually block people with ad blockers who are trying to access your content. I can't imagine. I'm sure that this has sharply decreased web traffic. And I've read that there are tensions in a lot of newsrooms right now between, the people on the subscription side and the ad sales side, with the ad sales side kind of angry that their ad inventory is shrinking. How important is advertising to Business Insider's business, and what conversations are you having with them as possibly the traffic is going down? I'll pause there. I might have a few follow-up questions on that front.
Sure. So first of all, and I think that comes back then to our decision why we went for this freemium approach, and I can't go too much into numbers here, but the general notation that the subscription offer is affecting our traffic in a negative way. I can happily say that we don't see that, and I think we're not alone with that. If we look again, and I mentioned that before, if you look at Bild in Germany, for example, their traffic grew over time on top of having a similar freemium product in place, and I think what drives people to a site is whether there is an experience, and that leads over to the advertising/ad blocker conversation, whether the experience is compelling, whether it's a positive experience, whether someone is leaving a site in a positive mood, inspired maybe to move on and do things and take the information you gain from there. But we felt that obviously, and that goes back to creating a sustainable business, we need to make sure that certain measures are taken, that there are no free riders which take a stance for the people who fairly engage with us. And more importantly, we generally think that an experience needs to be fair. and an experience needs to leave a positive impression. If you look at the ad load on Business Insider, we apply with like certain web standards, and we have ads which are like showing information which might be relevant to users or might not be relevant to users, but we try to like limit it to a certain level which is acceptable. And therefore we think if someone disagrees with that and might be interested in using an ad blocker, he can use an ad blocker and then pay us for that and continue using the ad blocker, or he can decide to whitelist, etc., etc. All these measures definitely helped make our business sustainable, definitely helped grow our business, and by that obviously also improve the experience and the stories our visitors and readers see on our site. So I think this is like a positive vicious circle in this case. And with regards to the conversations with the advertising side, because of the fact that Business Insider Prime is a freemium product which is not affecting a large percentage of the audience of people coming to us, but only for those people who come to us with a very specific purpose, we have very positive conversations with the sales side, because obviously the people who are coming to us and paying for our product are maybe also of higher value for our advertising clients. And in the same way, a product such as Business Insider Prime can also be an attractive environment for advertising clients if they know that like they show up in an environment which is in particularly attractive for like decision makers, for people who are deeply interested in a certain industry, etc., etc. So we have a very frequent and positive exchange with our colleagues on the advertising side. And I think that is definitely like what adds to the overall success of Business Insider, that we are very open of like working across the various teams and growing our various brands, be it Business Insider or Insider, all under the umbrella of Insider Inc. As our corporate parent.
And that was kind of my next question, was like, and there are always these theories that subscriptions will actually drive up advertising rates because advertisers want to reach A, loyal readers, loyal subscribers, and B, them paying for the product is indicative of them having, disposable income. And like you said, you could also you have their email addresses. You can qualify that they work in certain industries. So you have your advertising side has found that in some way helps them in selling ads.
So like I can't go into too much detail here, but like that is like the overall, like we have a very positive relationship with the advertising sales side, and I think that adds to the conversations, to put it like that.
So when you're looking at the analytics and you have this freemium model, where are you seeing the most conversions happening? Is it people coming in through a free article and then converting that way, or is it them landing on a Business Prime article and really wanting to read that one article, and that's when it triggers them finally paying? Like, where are you seeing the most effective conversion happening?
Sure. I mean, like, obviously, it is that, like, the more loyal, the better known a user, or the better a user knows a brand, and the more he trusts or she trusts a brand, the more open you are to start a relationship with someone or with a brand. So like visitors who are coming to us at a high frequency, visitors who are coming to us to engage with various types of content and stories, definitely show a higher conversion than someone who is just like coming by like on a very infrequent or like once a month, once a quarter, whatever it is basis. Nevertheless, though, and that is again something where I think like the freemium model which we went for is offering a great advantage, is that if someone is coming from Google because he is looking for a very specific information, because he has a very specific need, chances are that like also this like very single point of contact triggers a subscription. I think the big question then is like, how can we make sure that like this subscriber at that point stays active with us, is seeing the full value of a subscription with Business Insider, with Business Insider Prime. And what we do there is obviously like we start to have like a conversation via email, and then we see that like the users who are engaging with our emails and newsletters are obviously the ones which stay with us for the longest period of time, and on top of that also like driving new users into the subscription funnel via those emails. So I think obviously like loyalty frequency of visit matters a lot. But again, also this like serving a specific need is definitely like a strong driver of conversion for us.
Do you have a sales force at your fingertips? Like, are someone calling up businesses in different industries that you guys cover and saying, you have 500 employees at your at your company, and you work in this vertical that we cover closely, we can give you this discount on a per user account basis? Like, do you have a sales force that is selling that?
Well, we are working with more and more enterprise clients. That is absolutely true, and I think that is another example where it's very helpful for us to have Business Insider intelligence with an established sales force, and where we absolutely work together on providing clients a seamless experience for like hundreds or thousands of subscribers at a time. And that is absolutely something which, again, also like proves the value of Business Insider Prime and shows that like companies and industries rely on the information our editorial team is providing them with.
Well, Claudius, those were all the questions I had. Where can people find you online?
Well, I'm obviously available via email, basically the newsletter Revert at csense@businessinsider.com, or at Twitter at c_sense.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
Same. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's all we have for you today. Be sure to subscribe to the Business of Content on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. See you next week.